So, guys, welcome to the Sangha Call. This is Saturday morning here in Thailand, and we've got several of us in Thailand. And Dhammadas is in Chicago. Where are you, Brady?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. Been there, done that. Took my guitar to the place.
Yeah.
So, I welcome you and all to the Saturday morning talks. Brady has kind of a question about, well, how do we get started? And for the rest of you, you already know the point is that it's very simple, but we need to hear it over and over and over again. And so, actually, repetition is quite valuable. And yet you've heard people apologize for, oh, I repeat myself. All right. So I'm actually quite pleased that I can remember what I've said so that I can repeat it. And so basically, we can start at the very beginning. And the very beginning is that the Buddha said that both formerly and now, he teaches just one thing, and that is dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Now, what dukkha, dukkha nirodha means is that we are normally in a state of dissatisfaction and that we can come out of that state of dissatisfaction. Now, the way that Buddhism has been introduced to the West from way back when by Christians that have a very magical view of everything, and a lot of Buddhists have a magical view of everything, but really we're talking about something that's real, honest, and can be felt. And that is that we spend our lives in a state of dissatisfaction. Everybody is in a state of dissatisfaction much of the time. That's why we go shopping. That's why we make friends. That's why we eat food. That's why we breathe. It's because we're dissatisfied. If you think that you're satisfied and you stop breathing, then pretty soon you're going to get really dissatisfied and start to breathe again. And so this is what we're talking about, is the basic state of being dissatisfied. And that we can come out of that state of dissatisfaction if we practice correctly. That in fact, we got into the state of dissatisfaction basically by becoming alive. That in fact, the whole point about life itself is that it wants to maintain itself, and that takes a bit of work to do. This is, in fact, something that we talked about last week that I think David asked the question. Michael, were you on the call when we talked about life itself is suffering? Life itself is dissatisfying?
Yes.
Okay. And we pointed out that we have duties to staying alive. And if we fulfill our duties, we will stay alive, and sometime there's going to come a point that we can't maintain the duties. For instance, a great big bullet fired from a great big gun that shoots and blows our head off, we're not able to maintain all the stuff that life gives, and so we would die. We are all going to die. But as long as we're alive, we have duties to stay alive. And the most primary and basic one is breathing. So funny thing that then the Buddha uses breathing as the starting point for a meditation practice. And that the whole point is to come out of our dissatisfactions. Which gives rise then, if we unpack that one statement, dukkha, dukkha nirodha, we come into the Four Noble Truths immediately. It just like unfolds a piece of paper. And so we wind up with that piece of paper having 4 quadrants. We put 2 folds in it, and we come up with there is dukkha. It does exist. Life itself is not necessarily dukkha, but most people find it so. That in fact, another way of saying it is that life sucks. You probably heard that life is shit and then you die. You've also heard that life sucks. Well, guess what? Life sucks when you sucking on something. If you suck on something, then life sucks. And when you stop sucking on something, then life doesn't suck anymore. Now, what do we mean by sucking then is that we want to pull something in. We want to suck on it. We want to bring it to us. We're looking for something. And when we can become satisfied, then we stop sucking, and then life stops sucking. Very simple. All we have to do is stop sucking on things. And this is the Four Noble Truths. Now, the first thing that we want to point out is that the second noble truth is that there's a cause for sucking. And the reason that we do suck is because we want things, or we want to change things to get rid of them, and we do that ignorantly. So we could go so far as to say that we're not going to actually stop sucking, but we're going to start sucking wisely. If we suck wisely, then life doesn't suck. It's sort of like a soda straw that if you suck on, let us say that the soda straw is a bit clogged. You're drinking orange juice that's got a lot of pulp in it, or maybe a smoothie that's really hard frozen, and we suck and nothing comes through. That in fact, I got the joke is that at one time I sucked an entire Mercedes SL 500 through a straw. I got to have that thing. And so we suck through our proverbial straw to get what we want, and we don't recognize that that's what we're doing. So the real second noble truth is based upon ignorance, that we're ignorant in the sense that we think that we can get what we want by sucking, and in fact we just wind up being dissatisfied. And in fact, one of the best definitions of dissatisfaction is wanting something that you don't have. If you want something and you don't have it immediately, then we're dissatisfied because we want it. That's the entire teachings right there, is that we want things that we don't have. And so if we wisely start wanting things, then we will want the kind of things that we can get easily, almost immediately. This is the whole basis of the second noble truth. Now, in the teachings of the Buddha, that gets expanded very deeply into a teaching called Paticcasamuppada, or dependent origination. And today we won't go into that, other than to recognize that this teaching about the second noble truth actually winds up being a map of the mind, the way the mind works. And that if we can see how the mind works, then we can change the way the mind works. This is, in fact, the entire teaching of the Buddha is a change model, to be able to change. And we can only change what we can see. If we can't see it, we can't change it. For instance, if a bowman shoots an arrow at you, and you can see it in the air and see it coming, you've got a chance to get out of its way. But if he shoots that arrow and you're not paying attention, it's going to hit its mark. And so this is what the real teaching of the Buddha is to look at what's happening. to recognize what's going on. And when we can do that, then we're no longer ignorant. And now we're in the state of the third noble truth, which is freedom from dukkha, freedom from dissatisfaction. And the freedom from dissatisfaction winds up being called satisfaction. So when we're in a state of satisfaction, that's really all the Buddha teaches. And Western Buddhism and most, let us call it the Buddhism that is a religion, is wanting things that are way high, really lofty, really strange Pali words like arahat and enlightenment and nirvana and all of that, and we put those labels way far away from us, where in fact they're immediately available, but that we we think that they're far away because we're ignorant of them. Excuse me. So the third noble truth is actually available right immediately. All we have to do is to stop wanting something and be satisfied with the way things are right now. This is the practice. This is, in fact, the Eightfold Noble Practice. And that starts with a word called sati. And the word sati means to wake up and take a look. Basically, it has the quality of coming out of our mind into our senses, to start paying attention to what's real right in front of us, to come into the here now. And in the process of that, we can begin to see what we're thinking, because what we're thinking is not in the here now. When we're thinking and processing data, we're not taking data as input. But when we're taking data as input, one of the pieces of data that we can take of input is what the mind itself is doing. So we wake up and then we take a look. And when we take a look at what the mind is doing, we put things into, we put the discretion on it of, is this thought wholesome or is this thought unwholesome? If the thought is unwholesome, let's make a change to it. Now, generally, when students get started with this, they kind of think that almost all their thoughts are wholesome and only occasionally is there an unwholesome thought. But as we progress, as we get good at this, we begin to see more and more the thoughts that we have are actually unnecessary, unneeded, and also they hinder us from being in a really good state. And so if we can, in fact, choose the kind of thoughts that we're going to have, we can choose to put the mind in a really marvelous place. That, in fact, one of the big issues that most people have is that they are out of control of their feelings. Another way of saying it is that our feelings drive our behavior. That if we see something and we want it, then that puts us in the position of having to go get it. So we're driven to go get the things that we want. But when we don't want anything, then we're not driven around to get it. And so can we actually come to the state of being okay the way things are? And so the Eightfold Noble Path has three major points to it. And that is sati, to wake up, to be in the present moment, to take a look at what we're doing, and then to make a change for the better. In other words, come out of unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts. Michael, do you have anything to say so far with this?
Yes, I think for a lot of people, especially when beginning practice, it's the unpleasant feelings that arise that lead to thoughts that we can't be satisfied right now. But it is possible to be satisfied even while having unpleasant feelings, such as a runny nose or a stomach ache or something of this nature. And
Mhm.
it's well worth practicing when we have those unpleasant feelings.
Well, basically, you have heard the point that the mind is the forerunner. This is an important point that, in fact, much of society is arranged around things in a backwards way. An example is they talk about thought police. Oh, we have a law system that says you've actually got to commit the crime, that we can't arrest you for having thoughts about doing the crime. They can, in fact, arrest you by doing things to prepare to do the crime. For instance, if you're going to blow up the bank and you're out there buying dynamite by the box load, then the buying of the dynamite is an action that is going to lead then to the bank robbery. But sitting and musing over the idea, I'm going to rob the bank, is not illegal. And we don't want the law to do this. That's not the government's business at all. But we have to, as our own individual self, recognize that the mind, in fact, is the forerunner. We would never get the plans and the drawing and get the dynamite unless we were first thinking about robbing the bank. So, in that regard, the Michael, the unwholesome bad feelings that we have came from the mind.
Yes.
In other words, if you've got a cold, if you're stuffed up, you can, let's say, snivel and not mind it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have bad feelings about being sick, that's a mental state, not the actual body being sick. So we're actually talking about an attitude, not the body itself being sick, but our attitude about I don't like it being sick. And that's what gives rise to the feelings of not liking it. The feelings themselves are generated by the mind. And so this is why we start working with the mind, so that we can do these three things. So wake up, take a look, and make a change. Wake up, take a look, and make a change. The Buddha says that these three items run and circle around each other. And in a way, what that means is that they're interdependent upon one another. And as we gain skill at them, each one of them helps improve the skill of the other. So if we get into let us say, gear, get into the point of changing over and over and over again, then that means that it will help us to remember, and that'll also help us to look better. So these three things run and circle around each other. And then we add a fourth item to it. Now, that fourth item comes later. Let us say that being able to stand up and take a step is what we're talking about now, but eventually you can run. And so the fourth item on the list is called Sammasankappa. The ability to run is based upon the ability to walk. And the ability to walk has the quality of being able to balance oneself and move one foot and then move another foot and then move another foot. And this is what we need to practice. We need to practice this walking in the sense of making a change. One little change, and then another little change, and then another little change. And pretty soon we begin to feel really good. And that how we can do this is basically by talking ourselves into feeling good. A way of saying it is that we have spent our whole lives talking ourselves into feeling bad. Now it's time to spend the time to talk ourselves into feeling good. In the sutras, they talk about this as gladdening the mind or brightening the mind. And what we actually mean by that is changing our mental state or our mental attitude. That in fact we have various mental states. Everybody knows that we can have a mental state of drowsy, fully awake. We also have the attitude of I don't like it, or maybe even the attitude of being a victim. And then we also have the attitude of I'm on top of the world, everything is going my way, and all of this. These are what we would call mental states. And the mental state that we have then gives rise to the kind of thoughts that we're going to have. But also, if we intentionally have gladdening thoughts, it will actually gladden the mind and bring up the mind state. And if we can bring up the mind state, then we can bring up the feelings also. And the primary position of the feelings that we're looking for is the feeling of feeling safe and secure and comfortable and satisfied. Now, if you can get yourself into a state of feeling safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied, what more could you want? What more is there than that? And you can say, oh, well, I've heard there's this thing called enlightenment. And then that's what points to the point is that, well, if you were satisfied, then why would you want enlightenment? Is it possible for somebody to be enlightened and still want something and being not in the state of satisfaction? Versus, is it possible that when somebody is in the state of satisfaction, then would they want to be enlightened? So in this regard, we can actually say then that enlightenment means that we're satisfied. Now, I should take the point of defining enlightenment just for a little bit. The word enlightenment has the base word is light. Now, there's two kinds of uses of the word light. One of them is like turn the lights on, daylight, got a flashlight. These are words that we use to mean that we're doing something in order to see. So enlightenment has the quality of being able to see, to have the knowledge. And then the second definition of the word enlightenment with the word light means that if you see that you have, let us say, a 10-pound weight in your pocket and it's weighing you down and you can see it, you can take that weight out of your pocket and set it down, and now you're lighter. So the whole quality of the teaching of the Buddha is see what you're carrying that's heavy and then set it down so that you can be lighter. These two words are used commonly in the various sutras. One of them they use the word as knowledge and the other one is deliverance. But deliverance actually just means putting it down, actively putting it down, setting it aside, doing something to remove it. The example would be letting go. Let me get something to give you a demonstration, okay? The idea of letting go is that it's going to fall, right? Well, normally, when we're letting things go, we can let it go. It doesn't fall. It's still there. We have to actively put it down. That's because things are sticky. We think that we're letting it go, but it'll stick. That stickiness has to do with our habits. We've been carrying it so long. One of the major actors that became the head of the NRA talked about, if you want my gun, you're going to have to take it from my cold, dead hands. That even when he's dying, he's still clenching, holding, grabbing. Okay? And so just letting go doesn't have the actual quality of it's going to go, because we just sort of loosened our grip. But whether we have to be active in setting it down. This is what we actually are meaning by the word change. We actually have to take the effort to set it down, to put it away. And these thoughts are sticky. They will come back over and over and over again. An example of that is the guy goes into the meditation hall to sit down to meditate and feel happy and whatever, but he just got out of an argument with his girlfriend or his wife. And that argument is going to get sticky. He's going to think about it, and then he's going to remember, oh, I don't have to think about it. He can relax a little bit, and then that thought about that argument is going to come back again. And then what normally happens is he gets frustrated because he said, oh, I let that thought of her go. I let go of that thought of having the argument. Why does it keep coming back? And the answer to that is because it's sticky. In a way, we like to think about the argument that we had with the wife. Then we think of things, oh, I should have said this, and oh, I should have said that. Not recognizing that actually thinking about the argument that we had, the wife's not even here. Why am I having a conversation with an imaginary ghost? She's not here now. She's in the other room, or she went shopping or something. She's not here. And so most of the conversations that we have with people, we're having conversations with ghosts, mental apparitions, things that don't exist. And they're not fulfilling. What we can do instead is to recognize, oh, she's not here right now. Wow, what a relief it is. She's not here. She can't argue back. She can't argue with me. Why am I arguing with her? I could do a whole lot better than having that argument with her. I can sit here and relax and feel good, feel safe, feel secure, feel comfortable. That in fact, when I'm thinking about having an argument with the wife or the girlfriend, I don't feel safe. She's dangerous. She'll say something that'll just blow my mind or make me feel bad. And so when we're having thoughts about having an argument that we already had with someone, what that actually means is that we put ourselves in a state of dissatisfaction. How can we come out of that state of dissatisfaction and come into a state of satisfaction? The answer to that is change the thoughts. Change the thought, and the best way to do that is, I see that. I see that I'm arguing with somebody that doesn't exist. Wow, I can change that. Wow, what a relief it is. She's not here to argue. Wow, what a relief it is. I don't have anything to do, no place to go, nothing to do. Everything is okay. So this is the kind of language that we want to start generating for ourselves, to start having the thoughts of everything is okay, there is nothing happening, no place to go, nothing to do, everything is okay. Dhammarato, do you have any comments about this? Everything's okay.
Really.
Everything is okay. Everything is just fine. How about you, Brady? Do you have any comments now?
No, not at this moment.
How about you, Carl? Everything okay? Everything is fine? How about you, Alexander? I see you turned your mic on. Oh, you turned your mic on just to throw your thumbs up. All right, I got you. Actually, I don't hear you. Say again. I don't hear him. Anyway, I'm glad to see you again. It's been a while. All right, so this is the way that we practice. A lot of people think that this practice has to be formal. They do it in a meditation hall that has certain ways of putting the cushions, and they've got an altar and perhaps a dais with some incense and candles, and maybe they do some chanting and all of that kind of stuff, sitting in strange postures, squatting on the floor, sitting cross-legged, all of this kind of stuff is actually optional. That the real point is whatever posture you're in, whether you're standing, sitting, lying down, wherever you are, can you remember to stop thinking about all your troubles and worries and woes and start thinking about everything is okay right now. All the problems in life are old problems or yet to be. They're either old age, sickness, and death, or they're not even born yet. The reality is, in this present moment, you don't have any troubles. Michael, do you have any troubles right now? No.
No.
There's no troubles right now. Brady, do you have any trouble right now?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever. That's the state that we want to get into, is to get into a state where we got not a worry in the world, no troubles at all. Everything is okay, just the way that it is. Not a worry, not a problem, nothing's going on. And then people will say, well, I can do that. And what do I do after that? And the answer to that is, well, you've got a choice now. You're either going to go back into your misery state, or you can maintain this. That's the whole point, is if you can get yourself into a state of satisfaction, then why would you go back into a state of non-satisfaction by wanting something better than satisfaction? Because if you're wanting something that's better than satisfaction, then you're not satisfied wanting more, you're dissatisfied with what you have. This word satisfaction is an important word in English, and it has an equivalent in Pali called sukha. Sukha is actually the opposite of dukkha. Dukkha means dissatisfaction. We don't like the way that things are going, and we can in fact change that into a state of being satisfied. And so satisfaction doesn't have a next step. It's a resting place. That you're already in the holy place. There's no place to go after this. There was actually a book written many, many centuries ago, back in medieval times. The name of the book was called Pilgrim's Progress. And you know, back in the Middle Ages with the Crusades and all of that, they had a lot of pilgrims going to all of the holy sites. Well, what happens to a pilgrim when he gets to the holy site? Is he still a pilgrim? Or has he arrived? And if he has arrived, then there's no place to go. But what happens with real pilgrims is that they'll get to one holy shrine, and they'll spend a couple of days there, or maybe less, get rested up, and then they'll go back on a journey, become a pilgrim again, going to another holy site, and then another holy site after that. And so they're spending almost all their time on the way to the holy site and being a pilgrim, and spending very little time actually in the holy site. in the holy place. Now, I'm using the word holy here, and I want you to understand that I'm talking about being whole, being complete, being together. This is the state that we're looking for, and we can call that a holy state, where everything comes together, and we can maintain that the only thing that we can do other than maintaining it is go out and become a pilgrim again, going to yet another holy site. But the holy site that we're in now is holy enough. That in fact, one of the important words that I want to introduce is the idea of enough. There is no end to human knowledge, and on top of that, there's no end to all the knowledge that humans don't have yet. Who knows the extent of the unknown? There's no end to it, except that when you become satisfied with having enough knowledge. Now, there's a lot of people who become Buddhist scholars. They'll read books and they'll read more books and they'll start translating out of the Tibetan and they'll translate out of the Pali and they'll translate out of the Chinese, and they'll continue to write and read more and more and more books, and they become scholars, but they're never really satisfied. That in fact, we don't really need to know all of that stuff and all of those books. All we need is just enough. I've heard the old joke many times, and I've heard a new version of it recently, and that is that it's a nuclear plant. They fired all of the engineers because the nuclear plant was working just fine. And then it broke down. And so they had to bring this old engineer out of retirement because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with the nuclear plant. And so he walks in and he listens and he checks around, and then he says, "Hand me a hammer." And they hand him a hammer and he looks and he says, "Bang!" And then the whole nuclear plant starts to operate again. And so he leaves and sends them a bill for $1 million. And he says, "Why would you send us a bill for $1 million? You only used the hammer one time." And he says, "Okay, here's a new invoice." And he said, and the invoice is use of hammer, $1. Knowing where and when to hit, $999,999. And that was his invoice, okay? And so this whole point is about knowing when and what to do. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know the entire nuclear plant. We don't need to know all of that stuff. All we need to know is just enough. And I've already given you that. If you can practice what I've just given you over and over and over again, you've got enough to be happy for the rest of your life. One moment at a time. Every time you remember that it's okay for you to be happy, you can be happy. That in fact, you don't even need my permission to be happy. You're okay to do that. You don't need anybody else's help to be happy. You can do it all by yourself. And guess what? You can do it by yourself. You can do that. You have the power to change your own mind. You don't need anybody's help. You also don't have to work on well, what if I'm happy, things will go south. If I'm happy, things will really go bad. There's the old joke, the guy's sitting there all unhappy and everything, and somebody comes by and says, "Cheer up, things could get worse." And then later he comes by and he says, "Yeah, I cheered up." And sure enough, things got worse. Well, what that actually means is that kind of happiness is dependent upon the outside world. You could cheer up and things could get worse, but if you've got the habit of being cheered up, then it doesn't matter if things get worse. The problem is does the mind get worse? Do we go back into a state of being dissatisfied because things got worse? Or can we maintain that position of everything is okay? Even if it gets worse, it's okay. There's no end to the kind of troubles that you can dream up. And if you can't find enough dreamt up bad things to happen, ask a politician, because they'll tell you all kinds of things that are going bad. They need things to go bad. But we're not politicians. We're not trying to fix the world. We're only trying to fix the mind. And the mind is actually easy to fix. One thought at a time. One moment at a time. Michael, do you have anything to say?
There's not a thing. There's not a thing to be upset over. Everything is good enough right now, and good enough is perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Alexander? Did you get your mic going yet? Nope. Don't hear you. Well, how about you, Brady? What do you think?
Everything's fine right now.
You think you can do this? Do you think that you can start taking a few moments out of the day just to sit and to start telling yourself everything is okay, everything is fine, not a worry in the world?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this is the practice. Is the practice of putting our mind into a good state and then being able to maintain that. It's dead easy, but we forget to do it. That's why we opened the conversation with the talk with Dhammadasa and I, is that we need to remember this, because the whole world is giving us 10 million different things to think about what's gone wrong and what needs to be fixed and what we need and all of that. And we need constant reminders that we don't need anything, that everything is already just fine, just the way that it is. But we need to practice that over and over and over again. Everything is all right. Everything is fine. To gladden the mind, to brighten the mind, to start feeling safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied. And when we get into that state of safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied, something new begins to happen, and that is confidence. We get the confidence, I can do this. We get the confidence of, wow, everything really is okay. Wow, it's all right. Everything is just fine. Not a problem in the world. And so we get kind of elated off of the fact that everything really is great. Not a problem, not a care in the world. Can you imagine that? That's unbelievable that you've got no troubles. And when you practice it over and over again, that's the kind of state that you can visit on a regular basis. It's the state of bliss. It's the state of wow. It's the state of being with God. There's many different ways to describe it, but it really has to do with the confidence that you actually live in a paradise. Everything is all right. Everything is fine. Dhammadas, do you have anything to say?
Nope, just thank you. Thank you for teaching us.
Everything is all right. Everything is fine. Michael, do you have any final comments?
Hanging out in this paradise, making friends with God.
Brady, do you have any final comments?
Everything is okay.
Everything is okay, right. Well, I hope to see you again soon. Give me a call, and
I
we'll
will.
talk about it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Because I can tell you this, we can spend an hour talking about it, and 2 hours from now, You're thinking about something else. You're not thinking about how wonderful and marvelous things are. This is why we need to practice this, to
Yep.
practice, to remember that really everything is okay. Everything is cool.
I definitely plan on giving you a call tomorrow.
Excellent. I'd be happy to talk with you.
And now I have the time zone figured out. So I've tried to call before, but every time I was thinking about it, I wasn't quite sure if it was the right time or not.
Actually, for Central Standard Time, we're in daylight saving time. We're exactly 12 hours off.
Yeah, because it's like 9:06 where I'm at.
9:06?
Yeah, so I think it's 10 a.m. your time.
Yes, it's 10 a.m. our time. Okay, so that's right, but we're not in a daylight saving time. We're in standard time. So during standard time, it's Eastern time that's exactly 12 hours off. And so you're an hour behind them. So it's 9 p.m. for you on Friday evening, right?
Yep.
No problem. Just remember that pretty soon, though, your clock is going to change.
Oh, yours doesn't in Thailand? They don't have the.
Yeah, we don't do daylight saving time. We're already in the tropics. There's no daylight to save.
Okay. I think there's a city in Arizona that does. I think it's Scottsdale, Arizona. They don't have daylight savings time.
Right. They didn't need Richard Nixon.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't need Richard Nixon, but
Okay, guys. Well, let's go ahead and finish the call. And thank you guys very much. This has been a delightful call. Michael, where are you now? Currently, you're back to Koh Samui. You're going to do the retreat again.
Yeah, I'm headed to Deep Pabuan about an hour from now.
About an
actually.
hour or so. All right. Well, go there and hang out and do nothing.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, guys. We'll see you. We'll see you, Alex. We'll see you, Brady.